Today's video is about bell pepper plant care. In today's episode, we'll talk about choosing the right varieties for your climate and taste preferences. Then, we'll dive into the nitty-gritty of starting from seeds versus buying transplants. After that, we'll explore soil preparation and the perfect planting conditions. We'll also discuss watering techniques, fertilizing schedules, and how to support your plants as they grow. Finally, we'll tackle common problems you might encounter and wrap up with harvesting tips that'll have you picking perfect peppers all season long. So let's kick things off with the million-dollar question. What varieties should you actually grow? Now, if you're just starting out, California Wonder is an absolute superstar for beginners because it's incredibly forgiving and produces those thick-walled, blocky peppers we all love. These babies can handle a bit of neglect and still give you a fantastic harvest. But here's where it gets interesting. If you want to add some serious color to your garden, you've got to try some of the colored varieties. Red bell peppers like Red Baron or Lipstick are essentially green peppers that have been allowed to fully ripen, and wow, do they pack more flavor. The thing is, they take longer to mature, usually around 80-90 days compared to 70-75 for green varieties. And speaking of colors, don't sleep on the yellow and orange varieties like Golden Bell or Orange Sun. These are absolute showstoppers in the garden, and they're often sweeter than their green counterparts. The key thing to remember is that colored peppers need a longer growing season, so if you're in a shorter season climate, you might want to start with green varieties first. Should you start bell peppers from seeds or buy transplants? Now, this is where a lot of gardeners get stuck, and honestly, both approaches have their merits. Starting from seeds gives you way more variety options. I mean, you can find seeds for varieties that you'll never see as transplants in your local garden center. Plus, it's significantly cheaper, especially if you're planning to grow multiple plants. However, and this is a big however, bell peppers can be tricky to start from seed. They need consistent warmth. We're talking 80-85 degrees Fahrenheit to germinate properly, and they can take anywhere from 10-21 days to sprout. If you don't have a heat mat or a consistently warm spot in your house, you might struggle with germination rates. On the flip side, buying transplants means you're getting plants that are already 6 to 8 weeks old, which gives you a serious head start on the growing season. This is especially important if you live in areas with shorter summers. The downside? You're limited to whatever varieties your local nursery carries, and you'll pay significantly more per plant. If you're a beginner, start with transplants for your first year while you learn the ropes. Once you've got the hang of growing bell peppers, then experiment with starting from seeds. Trust me, there's nothing quite like growing a unique variety that nobody else in your neighborhood has. What type of soil do bell peppers need to thrive? All right, let's talk about what's literally the foundation of your pepper success, the soil. Bell peppers are actually pretty specific about their soil requirements, and getting this right can make or break your harvest. They absolutely love well-draining soil that's rich in organic matter, with a pH between 6.0 and 6.8. Now here's something that might surprise you. Bell peppers don't want soil that's too rich in nitrogen. Too much nitrogen will give you gorgeous, lush green plants that produce very few peppers. Instead, they prefer a balanced approach with plenty of organic matter like compost or well-aged manure worked into the soil. The drainage part is crucial because bell peppers are susceptible to root rot if they sit in waterlogged soil. If you're dealing with heavy clay soil, you'll want to amend it with compost, perlite, or even coarse sand to improve drainage. On the other hand, if you have sandy soil that drains too quickly, adding compost will help it retain moisture and nutrients. Do a simple drainage test before planting. Dig a hole about 12 inches deep and fill it with water. If it doesn't drain within 24 hours, you've got drainage issues that need addressing. The ideal scenario is soil that drains within 4 to 6 hours but still retains enough moisture to keep plants happy. When is the best time to plant bell peppers? Timing is absolutely everything when it comes to bell peppers, and this is where I see a lot of gardeners make costly mistakes. These plants are warm season crops that absolutely cannot tolerate frost, so you need to wait until all danger of frost is past and soil temperatures are consistently above 60 degrees Fahrenheit. But here's the thing, it's not just about the last frost date. Bell peppers really start thriving when nighttime temperatures stay above 55 degrees Fahrenheit consistently. Plant them too early when nights are still cool, and they'll just sit there looking sad and not growing. I've seen gardeners plant in early spring thinking they're getting a head start, only to have their plants stay stunted for weeks. The sweet spot for most regions is 2 to 3 weeks after the last frost date. In my area, that's typically late May to early June. However, if you're using transplants and have some protection, like row covers or cloches, you can push this timeline up by a week or two. Now, if you're starting from seeds, you need to work backwards from your planting date. Seeds should be started indoors 8 to 10 weeks before your intended transplant date. So if you're planning to transplant in late May, you'd want to start seeds in mid to late March. This gives your seedlings plenty of time to develop strong root systems before facing the outdoor world. How much space do bell pepper plants need? Yet, spacing is one of those things that can dramatically impact your harvest. Yet, it's often overlooked by home gardeners. Bell pepper plants need room to breathe and grow, and cramming them too close together is a recipe for problems down the road. The standard recommendation is to space plants 18-24 inches apart in rows that are 24-36 inches apart. Now, I know that might seem like a lot of space, especially if you're working with a small garden, but trust me on this one. Proper spacing ensures good air circulation, which is crucial for preventing fungal diseases that love humid, stagnant conditions. When plants are too close together, they compete for nutrients, water, and sunlight. This competition often results in smaller plants that produce fewer, smaller peppers. Additionally, overcrowded plants are more susceptible to pests and diseases because they create the perfect microclimate for problems to develop and spread. If you're really tight on space, you can get away with spacing plants 15-18 inches apart, but you'll need to be extra vigilant about watering and fertilizing since they'll be competing more intensely for resources. You might also need to provide extra support since the plants won't have as much room to spread naturally. For container growing, which we'll talk about more later, you'll want to use pots that are at least 5 gallons for each plant. Anything smaller, and you'll be fighting an uphill battle with watering and nutrient management all season long. How often and how much should you water bell pepper plants? Watering bell peppers is both an art and a science, and getting it right is crucial for healthy plants and good fruit production. The key is consistency. Bell peppers hate both drought stress and waterlogged conditions, so you're aiming for that sweet spot of evenly moist soil. Generally speaking, bell peppers need about 1 to 2 inches of water per week, including rainfall. But here's where it gets tricky. This can vary significantly based on your climate, soil type, and stage of plant growth. During hot, dry spells, you might need to water every day, while during cooler, humid periods, you might only need to water once or twice a week. The best way to determine when to water is the finger test. Stick your finger about 2 inches into the soil near the base of the plant. If it feels dry at that depth, it's time to water. If it's still moist, wait another day or two. This method takes the guesswork out of watering and helps you develop a feel for your plant's needs. When you do water, water deeply and thoroughly. Light, frequent watering encourages shallow root development, making plants more susceptible to drought stress. Instead, give plants a good soaking that penetrates 6 to 8 inches into the soil, then let the soil dry out slightly before watering again. This encourages deep root growth and creates more resilient plants. What's the best fertilizing schedule for bell peppers? Fertilizing bell peppers requires a bit of strategy because their nutritional needs change throughout the growing season. Early in the season, they need a balanced fertilizer to establish strong root systems and healthy foliage. But once they start flowering and setting fruit, their needs shift dramatically. At planting time, I like to work a balanced, slow-release fertilizer into the soil. Something like a 10-10-10 or 12-12-12 works well. This provides a steady supply of nutrients as the plants get established. However, once you see the first flowers appearing, it's time to switch gears. During the flowering and fruiting stage, bell peppers need less nitrogen and more phosphorus and potassium. Too much nitrogen at this stage will give you beautiful, lush plants that produce very few peppers. I switch to a fertilizer with a ratio more like 5-10-10 or use a tomato fertilizer, which has similar nutritional requirements. One thing I've learned is that consistent, light feeding works better than heavy, infrequent applications. I like to fertilize every 2 to 3 weeks during the growing season with a diluted liquid fertilizer. This approach prevents the feast or famine cycle that can stress plants and lead to problems like blossom end rot. Organic gardeners can achieve similar results using compost, worm castings, and organic fertilizers like fish emulsion or bone meal. The key is to provide steady nutrition without overwhelming the plants with too much nitrogen during the reproductive phase. Do bell pepper plants need support, and what's the best way to provide it? This is a question I get asked a lot, and the answer is it depends. Bell pepper plants aren't vining plants like tomatoes, but they can definitely benefit from support, especially as they start producing heavy fruit loads. Without support, laden branches can break or bend to the ground, where peppers are more susceptible to rot and pest damage. The type of support you choose depends on the variety you're growing and your garden setup. For standard bell pepper varieties, simple stakes or cages work well. I prefer using 4 6-foot stakes placed about 6 inches from the plant and tied with soft materials like cloth strips or plant ties. Never use wire or string that can cut into the stems as they grow. Tomato cages can also work well for bell peppers, especially the larger, more robust varieties. The nice thing about cages is that they provide support on all sides, which is helpful when plants are loaded with fruit. However, make sure you're using sturdy cages. Those flimsy ones from the garden center will collapse under the weight of a productive pepper plant. For determinate varieties that stay more compact, you might not need any support at all. But if you're growing indeterminate varieties or you're in a windy location, some form of support is almost always beneficial. The key is to install your support system early in the season before the plants get too large and you risk damaging roots. What are the most common problems when growing bell peppers? Even with the best care, bell pepper plants can encounter various problems throughout the growing season. Understanding these common issues can help you prevent them or address them quickly when they occur. Blossom end rot is probably the most frustrating problem for bell pepper growers. You'll see dark sunken spots on the bottom of developing peppers, and unfortunately, affected fruits are ruined. This isn't actually a disease, it's a physiological disorder caused by calcium deficiency, which is usually the result of inconsistent watering rather than lack of calcium in the soil. Pest problems are another common challenge. Aphids love bell peppers and can quickly colonize plants, especially during hot, dry weather. They're usually more of a nuisance than a serious threat, but heavy infestations can weaken plants and spread viral diseases. Regular inspection and early intervention with insecticidal soap or neem oil usually keeps them under control. Fungal diseases like bacterial spot and anthracnose can be serious problems, especially in humid climates or when plants are overcrowded. Good air circulation, proper spacing, and avoiding overhead watering can prevent most fungal issues. If you do see signs of disease, removing affected leaves immediately and treating with an appropriate fungicide can help contain the spread. Environmental. Stress can also cause problems like flower drop, where plants drop their flowers before they can set fruit. This usually happens when temperatures are too hot, above 85 degrees Fahrenheit during the day, or too cool, below 55 degrees Fahrenheit at night, or when plants are stressed from inconsistent watering or poor nutrition. How do you know when bell peppers are ready to harvest? Knowing when to harvest your bell peppers can maximize both your yield and the quality of your harvest. The good news is that bell peppers are quite forgiving. You can harvest them at multiple stages of ripeness, depending on your preferences and needs. For green bell peppers, you can start harvesting when they reach full size, but are still green and firm. Most varieties will be ready about 70-80 days from transplanting. The peppers should feel solid and have a glossy appearance. Don't wait too long at this stage, as overripe green peppers can become bitter. If you want colored peppers, red, yellow, orange, or purple, you'll need to let them stay on the plant longer to fully ripen. This usually adds another 2 to 3 weeks to the harvest time. Colored peppers are sweeter and have more vitamin C than green ones, but leaving them on the plant longer means fewer total peppers since the plant puts more energy into ripening existing fruit rather than producing new ones. The key to harvesting is using clean, sharp pruning shears or a knife rather than pulling peppers off by hand. Pulling can damage the plant and reduce future production. Cut the pepper stem about 1/4 inch above where it attaches to the pepper, leaving a small stub. Regular harvesting actually encourages more production, so don't be afraid to pick peppers frequently. The more you harvest, the more the plant will produce, giving you a continuous supply throughout the growing season. Can you grow bell peppers in containers? Absolutely. Container growing is a fantastic option for bell peppers, especially if you have limited garden space or poor soil conditions. In fact, some gardeners prefer container growing because it gives them more control over soil conditions and makes it easier to move plants if weather conditions become unfavorable. The key to successful container growing is choosing the right size container. Bell peppers need substantial root space, so you'll want containers that are at least 5 gallons in size. Larger containers, 10 to 15 gallons, are even better because they provide more root room and require less frequent watering. Drainage is absolutely critical for container-grown peppers. Make sure your containers have multiple drainage holes in the bottom and consider elevating them slightly on pot feet or blocks to ensure water can escape freely. I also like to add a layer of coarse material like gravel or broken pottery, the bottom of large containers to improve drainage. Use a high-quality potting mix rather than garden soil for containers. Potting mixes are formulated to drain well while retaining appropriate moisture levels. I like to add some compost or worm castings to provide slow-release nutrients throughout the growing season. Container plants will need more frequent watering than garden plants, especially during hot weather. Check soil moisture daily during summer and be prepared to water every day or even twice a day during heat waves. The trade-off is that you have complete control over soil conditions and can easily move plants to optimize growing conditions. How do you save seeds from bell peppers? Saving seeds from your best bell pepper plants is a rewarding way to ensure you'll have your favorite varieties year after year. However, there are some important considerations to keep in mind to ensure successful seed saving. First, you'll need to let at least some of your peppers ripen fully on the plant. This means waiting until they've changed color, whether that's red, yellow, orange, or purple, depending on the variety. Green peppers contain immature seeds that won't be viable for planting. When harvesting for seed, choose peppers from your healthiest, most productive plants. These are the genetics you want to preserve and propagate. Cut the pepper open and carefully remove the seeds, trying to keep them as intact as possible. The next step is crucial: proper drying. Spread the seeds out on a paper plate or screen in a warm, dry location with good air circulation. Avoid direct sunlight which can damage the seeds. Properly dried seeds should be hard and brittle, with no moisture remaining. Once dried, store seeds in paper envelopes or small containers labeled with the variety and date. Keep them in a cool, dry place. A refrigerator works well for long-term storage. Properly stored bell pepper seeds can remain viable for 2 to 4 years, though germination rates may decline over time. One important note: if you're growing hybrid varieties, the seeds you save may not produce plants identical to the parent. For consistent results, stick to open-pollinated or heirloom varieties for seed saving. What companion plants work well with bell peppers? Companion planting can significantly improve the health and productivity of your bell pepper plants while maximizing your garden space. The right companion plants can help deter pests, improve soil conditions, and even enhance flavor. Basil is probably the most famous companion for peppers, and for good reason. Not only do they complement each other perfectly in the kitchen, but basil can help repel aphids, spider mites, and other pests that commonly attack pepper plants. Plant basil around the base of your pepper plants or in nearby rows for maximum benefit. Tomatoes make excellent companions since they have similar growing requirements and can share support structures. However, keep in mind that they're both heavy feeders, so you'll need to be extra diligent about soil fertility and watering when growing them together. Marigolds are fantastic companion plants for peppers because they help deter nematodes and other soil-borne pests. Their strong scent can also confuse and repel flying insects that might otherwise target your peppers. Plant them as a border around your pepper bed or intersperse them throughout the planting area. Herbs like oregano, parsley, and cilantro make excellent companions and can help create a diverse ecosystem that supports beneficial insects. These herbs also don't compete heavily with peppers for nutrients and can be harvested throughout the season. Avoid planting peppers near brassicas like cabbage, broccoli, or cauliflower, as they can inhibit pepper growth. Also, keep peppers away from fennel, which can negatively affect the growth of most vegetables. How do you extend the bell pepper growing season? Extending your bell pepper season can significantly increase your harvest and provide fresh peppers well into fall. There are several strategies you can use to keep plants productive longer and protect them from early frost. Row covers are one of the most effective tools for season extension. These lightweight fabrics can provide 4 to 6 degrees of frost protection, while still allowing light and air to reach plants. Install them when temperatures start dropping consistently below 50 degrees Celsius at night, and remove them during warm, sunny days to prevent overheating. Mulching heavily around plants can help retain soil warmth and protect roots from temperature fluctuations. I like to use straw or leaves applied 3 to 4 inches thick around the base of plants, being careful not to pile mulch directly against the stems. For container-grown peppers, you have the advantage of mobility. Move containers to protected areas, like against south-facing walls or into unheated greenhouses when temperatures drop. The thermal mass of walls and concrete can provide several degrees of protection. Succession planting is another strategy that works well in longer season areas. Plant a second crop of peppers in midsummer for fall harvest. These later plantings often produce well into fall because they're not stressed by the heat of summer. If you're really serious about extending the season, consider investing in a small greenhouse or hoop house. Even an unheated structure can, extend your growing season by 4-6 weeks on both ends, dramatically increasing your total harvest. What are the best ways to preserve and store bell peppers? After putting all that effort into growing beautiful bell peppers, you'll want to preserve them properly to enjoy your harvest year-round. There are several effective methods for storing bell peppers, each with its own advantages. Fresh storage is the simplest method for short-term preservation. Whole unwashed peppers can be stored in the refrigerator for 1 to 2 weeks in the crisper drawer. Don't wash them until you're ready to use them, as excess moisture can lead to spoilage. For even longer storage, you can keep peppers in perforated plastic bags to maintain humidity while allowing air circulation. Freezing is probably the most popular preservation method for home gardeners. Bell peppers freeze beautifully and maintain most of their nutritional value. Simply wash, remove seeds and stems, and cut into strips or dice. You can freeze them raw on baking sheets, then transfer to freezer bags for long-term storage. Frozen peppers will keep for 8 to 12 months and are perfect for cooked dishes like stir-fries, soups, and casseroles. Dehydrating is another excellent option that concentrates flavors and creates a shelf-stable product. Cut peppers into strips and dry them in a dehydrator or low oven until completely dry and brittle. Properly dried peppers can be stored in airtight containers for up to a year and can be rehydrated for cooking or ground into pepper flakes. Canning allows you to preserve peppers in various forms, whole in strips, or as part of salsas and relishes. However, because peppers are low-acid vegetables, they must be pressure canned for safety. Always follow tested recipes and proper canning procedures to ensure food safety. And there you have it, folks. Everything you need to know to grow incredible bell peppers from seed to harvest. I hope this comprehensive guide has given you the confidence to start your own pepper growing adventure or improve your existing pepper game. Remember, gardening is all about experimentation and learning from both successes and failures. Don't be discouraged if your first season doesn't go perfectly. Even experienced gardeners face challenges every year. The key is to observe your plants, take notes, and adjust your approach based on what you learn. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more in-depth gardening guides. I'd love to hear about your bell pepper growing experiences in the comments below. Share your successes, challenges, and any questions you might have. Until next time, happy gardening, and may your pepper plants be productive and your harvests abundant.